is David writing this song? Because he opened up in verse 1 that this song he's speaking after he finishes with Kol Oivav, and also the problems from Shaul. Well, Kol Oivav could be various kings that he's dealt with, and he's now free from them. The king of the Plishtim, king of Aram, the king of Moab, the problems that he's had at home with Avshalom, with Amnon and Tamar. Before that, do you remember the rebellion of Sheva ben Bichri from the tribe of Binyamin? So he's now praising Hashem after being saved from all these problems. And you probably thought David was on easy street, huh? It's not true. He had more troubles than Mr. Trouble. Okay? Furthermore, so that could be that he's collecting all these praises maybe throughout all these problems that are now resolved. Number 2, Mikaf Shaul. He's saved, as it says at the opening pasuk, Biyom Yitzil Hashem Oto Mikaf Kol Oivav, and the day that God saved him from the hand of Shaul. Well, the hand of Shaul, that was even when? Before, correct? Before David started his reign. So maybe we might say that this is a collection of praise of Hashem. Shira is praise, Shira is poetry. And basically the first part of this song is David giving thanks to Hashem, the fact that Hashem saved him. And here, from verses 2 to 7, we saw yesterday that there's a description of the times that David is in trouble. Now when he's in trouble, clearly here, who does he turn to when he's in trouble? Hashem. In what form?
Prayer.
Tefillah. And we see that in Tehillim, all over the place. In Psalms, David is often describing that what he has, mitzukot, mashbirim, we saw other descriptions here, galeyam, and so on, mitzukei mavet, death blockades, and so on and so forth. He turns bitfilah. So we see here in these first 7 verses, at least, that David is an active personality in turning to Hashem. He doesn't sit back and twiddle his thumbs. He doesn't cry and wipe his tears and not just do anything. David acts. How? In tefillah. Not action in ma'asim here, but first tefillah, that's what's described here. And what do we see? That after whatever time, whatever Yeshua comes, the salvation comes, and David is often hiding behind Hashem. Not hiding in a negative way, but relying on Hashem, using him as his power of trust. That's what we see here. David has these active enemies, and David prays. And Hashem is doing what? Is rewarding him by saving him time and time again. Do we know of these 7 verses what the time it's talking about? It could be before his kingdom. It could be during his kingdom. Certainly when we're talking about Shaul, right, David? Shaul pursuing David, there we saw that David was inactive. During the chapters of this Sefer, when Shaul, Shmuel Aleph, when Shaul was pursuing to kill David, there we saw a different type of David. He was very passive. Do you remember why he was passive?
Which time?
When he's running away from Shaul.
Still a ruler.
Shaul is king.
Yeah.
What does David want to prevent doing?
To hurt the Mashiach Hashem.
Lord said, "Lingo b'Mashiach Hashem." He doesn't want to touch the anointed of God. Even though, as we learn those chapters, halachically, David had every right. From the law of Haba lehorgecha, hashkem lehorgo. Someone that's coming to kill you, you're allowed to preempt and kill him first. David had it correct on it. He had a very halachic right.
But if you see afterwards, he just touched his robe, and he got
he got punished for that.
So imagine what would happen if you would have killed him, no?
I'm not sure. You know, everyone is judged according to their greatest abilities. You and I are not the same abilities. You're Aleph and I'm Bet and you're Gimel, and everyone is different. Thank you, sir. Compliments will get you everywhere. I mean nowhere. Okay? So there, David, number 1, look, do you remember the proportion of forces when David was fighting against Shaul, David had a few hundred people. We can imagine how many forces were behind the king. He could have had thousands of forces. So David to fight Shaul head to head, it's illogical. That's number one. Number two, a point is, like you said, he doesn't want to touch the Mashiach Hashem. We explained that David is looking forward to all future generations. If people learn and see that David lifted up a hand, killed Shaul, injured Shaul, it could be that people might be lightheaded in future generations. And what is it called? Happy off the trigger? What's the expression? I don't know. Happy off the trigger, and God forbid assassinate wrongfully leaders of Israel. So that could be part of the reasons. So here we see the content of the first 15 verses of this chapter. Let's continue. Bevakasha, where are we up to? Verse 17. Okay, let's start learning. Bechavod. Ken David, start reading. Yishlach. Ken David continues to use heavy waters or lots of waters as a place of danger. Okay? That David has the confidence that God will send from where? Mimarom, from the lofty heavens. What will he send? A saving. And yikacheni, and take me, meaning save me amongst my enemies. Yamsheni mimayim rabim. Do you remember the word Yamsheni from the Chumash? Moshe, very good, excellent.
Did we do this line?
No, we did all that yesterday.
Really?
I think so.
Wow.
You're saying that we didn't? No, maybe it's right. We didn't do Tedvav. Maybe we didn't do Tedvav.
No, we did.
We did Tedvav? You're right. Mosdot Tevel Begarat Hashem, yeah. I think so. So, Tetzain maybe not. So we'll start with Tetzain. Bechavod. Read it, David Hayes. Vayera'u. You opened up your mouth. You deserve to read it.
Vayera'u afikei yam yigalu mosdot tevel v'ga'arat Adonai min nishmat ruach apo.
Okay. Notice the language here. Afikei yam. Afikei yam could be the bottom of the sea. What is it called in English? The bottom of the sea. The bottom, the what? The guts? The depths of the sea, afikiyam. It's the ground down below. That, that God will be revealed, God's powers will be revealed even in afikiyam. Yigalu, they'll be revealed, the mosdot tevel, to anything that is the basis of the world, the planet of Earth. How? Bega'arat Hashem. It's like the roaring of God, which is compared to what? The breathing, minishmat ruach apo, as if, it's all metaphorical, as if all the storms, all the troubles are not a problem because God will appear to be saving him, as it's compared here to the neshima, the breath of God, as if. So that's how David feels, that no matter where he is, nishmat ruach apo, doesn't have to be the soul, but rather the nishimato shel Hashem. Okay, the breathing. All this, of course, is the metaphor. God breathes and it causes a storm. God breathes and he causes a saving. That's how the Mitzudat Zion explains. Milashon nishima unishivat apeh. So God can blow away any forces against him. And then the confidence of David, what we read now in Yud Zayin, that the roaring of Hashem, as if, Bega'ara, his Ga'ara, his someone that wants to rebuke you, just say something in a strong voice or so, his Ga'ara. But again, in Yud Zayin, David has confidence that God will, from the lofty areas, send what? Save send some sort of Yeshua. And Yamsheni, we stopped there a moment ago. Yamsheni mimayim rabim. So you're right. The word Moshe, the Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu has about 7 names. One is Avigdor, because he made a lot of gderot, rabbinical restrictions, and so on and so forth. And the question is asked amongst the Rishonim, why was the name Moshe? Why did that stay? In fact, that was given to him by who? Not his mother and father, but yeah, the daughter of Paro. Okay? So there's a very important sforno there, one of the great Rishonim from Italy, that he explains or raises a question that he really should have been called Mashui. David was lifted up from the sea.
He lifts up other.
Beautiful, that's the essence. You really? Very nice. Kol hakavod. That's from the sforno, it's not me. He should have been called Mashui. He was brought up from the waters. Okay? Therefore, the verb lashut is to sail, to go into the water, lashut. And that special commando unit in the Navy is called the shayetet. Okay, the shayetet 16. We were prized to have a son that served 7-8 months in there before he fell. Okay, like 400 or 500 came for the tryouts. They took 80, and he made the 80. Surprised us. But one of our sons. But it's very grueling tryouts, and he had already infection.
You can't have glasses though, right?
I don't know. In any event, the tryouts they're very, very hard, and it's in a secret base. You have to sign a lot of releases not to keep the laws of the army, because they get them up 4 a.m. to swim in there, and they feed them 4 times a day as well. By the way, in any event, already towards Pesach time, he was suffering for about a month from some sort of infection in his cursul, in his ankle or something. It didn't heal, and I guess he wasn't Superman, and they. After the Pesach vacation, Listman, Litrout. It broke his heart for a few days, but it was for the good. Then he became an officer in another good unit, and he went on the shidduch and got married. Otherwise, he wouldn't have time to go on any shidduchim. In any event, so that's called the shetet. Yamsheni mimayim rabim. When God's going to be saving me, He's going to be lifting me up from the deep waters. Okay. That's the security, the bitachon that David has in the Yeshua. Continue, pasuk Yud Chet. Yatzilein. Again, David has bitachon, security. Yatzileini. Who will be saving me? Hashem. From who? Me oivi az. Even from those my enemies that are what?
Strong.
That are mighty, that are strong. O's, that's right. Misonai, from those that hate me. Ki amtzu mimeni. They hate me. They have confidence they can overcome me. Okay? Ki amtzu mimeni. If they do make efforts, they're really much stronger than I am, and therefore I needed Hashem to save me. Now, we'll repeat what we said yesterday, and that is. David had strife also from within. Not only Shaul, Sheva ben Bichri, the merit of Shalom. He was in a lot of situations. What? He was in a lot of situations that he had to retreat, and that's how his life was saved. Instead of battling head to head. B'chavod, Yutet.
זה יקדמוני ביום עדי ויהי בני משען לי.
Okay, all these psukim that we're reading seem to be part Aleph of this chapter about David praising and turning to Hashem. And here it says, Yikadmuni biyom edi. Aid, what is Edi? Aid is a terrible event that's coming. Yom Eid. It's used in the Tanakh several times. On the terrible day or tragedies that are coming to me, who precedes in saving me? Yikadmuni. He will save me. He will precede and save me. Yikadmuni, Hashem. Okay? Or there's another meaning that the oyev, the enemy, could be talking about, would even come earlier than expected to attack me. And what would happen? Vayi Hashem Mish'an. God would be my leaning post, my supporter. Kain Lishen Alav. Again, David's full of... By David saying these sentences, he's basically praising Hashem, that Hashem has always been with him to save him in every situation. Pasuk Kaf. Vayotze. Come on, Mr. Hayes, let's keep up the pace.
Oh, I just wanted to know, what does Yam Sheni mean?
Lamush is to raise me up from deep waters. Lamush, that's why we said it was the word Moshe. Limshot is to raise someone out of the water. Vayotze.
Oh, I'm reading?
We're waiting.
Vayotze lamerhav oti. Vayotze lamerhav oti yichaltzeni ki chafetz bi.
When someone is in a narrow situation, he's in the straits, right? A very narrow situation, right? You've heard of the Straits of Gibraltar, you've heard of the Straits of Tiran, next to the Suez Canal. When someone is in a trouble, he doesn't feel the wideness, the width, the air, the space. He feels constrained. So when God is saving him, he feels, wow, God is taking me out to the merchav, to the wide area, to a safe area. Yichaltzeni, God will rescue me. Ki chafetz bi. He has confidence that Hashem loves him, that Hashem desires his going on and living. So he continues the song, B'chavod, Pasuk Kaf Aleph.
Yichaltzeni means to
L'chaletz, to rescue. That's right, very good. Yes. Kitzit kati. Nachon kivor yadai yashiv li. Other words of saving. Here in this case he uses the word yigmaleni, from the word to bestow kindness, ligmol chesed. Okay, and Hashem will bestow kindness on me. Okay, and here we talk about, now we're going to be mentioning for the next perhaps 10 psukim, the midot, the character traits of God in the eyes of David. Number one here, Yigameleni Hashem. Okay, God is bestowing kindness. It's not that it's coming to me. It's chesed of Hashem. Ketzid kati. Why does he talk about his own righteousness? In other words, God sees the good things I do, and he'll never ever misappropriate savings from me. Whatever I deserve, he'll give me, and even more. That's kitzid kati. Whereas kivor yadai, yashivli. You know what kivor is? The tahara, the purity of my hands, yashivli. David knows that not only has he acted and done things in the proper way, but his intentions are pure. David is not looking for PR. David is not looking for fame. David is not looking for wealth. On the contrary, he's doing everything for the sake of Am Yisrael. He's so klali. He's wanting to build his aspirations. Remember, we saw at the end of the last chapter that what is his family occupied in doing? Weaving parochot for the Beit HaMikdash. Where do you think his family got that from? Because David established, this is our aspiration. We want to build a house for God. It can't be that there are hundreds of years have gone by. We don't have a Beit HaMikdash. We're in Eretz Yisrael, more than 440. We're in 400 years in Eretz Yisrael, and there's no Beit HaMikdash. So his family is even getting ready by weaving. We already learned at Shmuel that David is putting money in the national treasury in order to build the Beit HaMikdash, in order to finance the building, the making of the fine kelim, the vessels of the Beit HaMikdash. So David says, Kivor Yadai, the purity of my hands. When I'm doing, Yad is action. When I'm doing things with my heart. Okay? And God will respond to me according to the purity of my actions. Bechavo, David, Hayes, Kafbet, Ki
shamarti darchei Adonai v'lo rashati me'Elohai.
He's explaining why God is doing all this. Because I've kept Ki shamarti darchei Hashem, the ways of God. Okay, and the ways of God are acting in different episodes in different ways. There's no black and white way to act all the time in this way or that way. There are times you have to be cruel, going to war. There are times you have to be passionate to your fellow Jew. There are times that you have to be doing above and beyond what people deserve. David knew all the drachim of God, how to act and behave in all the different ways. Velo rashati. What is velo rashati? Me Elokai? Huh?
Follow wickedness.
Ken. David, don't misunderstand that I have a problem here. It seems that David is boasting. Velo Rashati. Okay? Whereas we know David in other episodes in the Tanakh with tremendous humility. So will the real David please stand up? Is he boasting about his greatness or not? So I saw a commentary, I think it's the Dat Mikra, the Musar of Cook edition, that says, Ve'im Rashati, Chazarti B'tshuva. If I did some bad things, I certainly corrected. I rectify the matters. I learned in Machon Meir, Chazarti B'tshuva, okay? He's not boasting that has never made a mistake. He knows he's made mistakes. David, we saw time after time again, realize that he's paying the bill for the wrong way he raised his children. Okay? And he did where he didn't butt in, he should have butted in. And he was Kabbalat Adin, he was receiving judgment. Bechavod, Kaf Gimel. כן,
ככל משפטיו לנגדי וחוקותיו לא אסור ממנו.
ככל משפטיו לנגדי. Okay, all the laws of God are opposite me. David had a Sefer Torah wherever he went. In front of him, David, right? Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid. David was always cognizant of the fact of the laws of the Torah. He had a very big day, a full day. Head of the Sanhedrin, the chief of staff, civil service, v'chukotav. The hard laws that don't have reasonable explanation, the chukim, the statutes, lo asur mimena, will never be removed from them. Chavar, Kavdalit. Avoni, right. Why does David say va'eheyet tamim lo? David had a hard life. You would have thought that, he would pick a litigation against God, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve that. But David had the character trait of timimut, wholesomeness. He was always wholesome with God. We read that in last week's parsha. Do you remember? The Torah says, and we're quoting, Tamim tiya im Hashem Elokecha. As opposed to the sorcery, the magic, the idolatry that the nations of the world are using, as a special warning of Moshe Rabbeinu getting the nation ready into the land of Israel. Don't use those tactics. Don't go to the ones looking at the magic balls, the crystal balls, or sorcery or magic or this or that. Have the attribute of being tamim, be complete, meaning no matter what Hashem gives us, accept it in a wholesome way. And now is David's attribute. Ve'eheyeh tamim lo. I acted with complete faith and security in God. Whatever He gave me. I deserve it. Okay? V'shtamra me'avoni. What helped David to preserve himself from his sins, from the Yetzer Hara? The Tmimut. He didn't complain, he accepted everything. B'chavod, Pasuk Kafei.
Vayashev Adonai li ketzidkati kevori leneged einav.
Ken vayashev Hashem li ketzidkati.
Hashem gave me back according to my righteousness.
Right, so yeah, it's like a repetition or something very similar in Kaf Aleph in 21. Ken, it's a question I really don't know the answer. Why is he repeating something very similar here? I don't see here something right now. Maybe what do you want to say?
Maybe one is he gave him like kindness.
In Kaf Aleph, Yigmaleni Hashem Ketzidkati, maybe he's talking about my tzidkut klape God. Here, I see the Marikara says that God would give me according to my righteousness how I acted with mankind, how I acted with civilization, with society. So one is Ben Adam LaMakom, and the other could be Ben Adam LaChavero. He also says Kivori, my pure ways. Okay? It was clear cut, innocence. I didn't take things on I wasn't violating laws or financial laws or taking things into my pocket. Kivori leneged einav. He provided every fiscal year a check and balance system of debits and credits of the national financial budget, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's go on. Kavav. Now we're going to see further midot of God in the eyes of David. B'chavod, Kavav. Wow. Im chasid titchasad. Im gibor tamim titamam. Someone who's saintly, Hashem, you act with him with saintliness. Im Gibor Tamim, someone who is a complete Gibor. And of course, some of you remember the mission of Pirkei Avot. A Gibor doesn't have to be, in Judaism, Popeye that eats, tons of spinach every day. But a Gibor is who?
Someone who controls his yitzhak.
Very good. Miwa Gibor, a Koveshet Yitzro, right, exactly. Someone who can control his Yetzer, someone who's disciplined and his intellect is in control of his heart, of his emotions, and so on and so forth. So, here, David is referring to that God acts midah keneged midah. That's how some explain it here. With the chassid, he provides special kindness. With the gibor, titamam, he's very wholesome in providing for him. And that's two attributes. What about a third attribute in the next pasuk?
Gibor with what was it? Tamim.
In gibor tamim, someone who's such a complete gibor, titamam. What does titamam mean?
Tamim titamam.
Every gibor that the ability to violate laws because of his great Yetzirah, as you know, the greater the individual is on the ladder of Torah Judaism, the greater the inner powers inside him could lead him astray. He's not on easy street. Okay, we saw the greatest of scholars of the greatest of the Yetzirah. Okay, that's how the Maharal explains the great fall as in a public way at Mount Sinai. Don't be surprised that the best thieves in the world are Jews. Don't be surprised that the greatest of criminals in the world are Jews. We have the greatest capabilities, as the Maharal of Prague explains, and therefore we have the greatest inner powers to use them in the wrong avenues. So,
what about someone who's Jewish and not?
So he's less indicted. He's going to be less indicted because he never learned. What do you want from him? His father, grandfather, great-grandfather never told him about Avram Avinu and what Torah is about. Okay? Or what Chazal call the language Tinok Shenishba Ben Agoyim, as if an infant who grew up in captivity amongst the nations. So what it means here, Gibor Tamim Titamam, the Marikar explains, one of the great Rishonim, that everyone that had the ability, Gvura, to do bad things, however he conquered his Yetzirah, God will act with him bitmimut. In other words, God will be wholesome with him, reward him, and so on. Whereas pasuk of Zayin, next pasuk. Titapal, im navar titavor. Who is a navar, gentlemen? A navar is someone who's barur v'naki. Okay, navar is someone who's tahor, naki. In other words, not only are his actions, the Mesilat Yesharim, in the chapter of purity, later chapters 14 or 15 or 16, I forgot which one, it's Chazal that uses the concepts, or from the Tanakh, in fact. So not only do we see people that are acting so well, but they have pure intentions as well. Okay? They're acting not for fame, not to call me rabbi, not to stand up for me, but they're doing it for pure reasons, clean reasons. And so a navar, with that type of person, act the same way to him. Midah keneged midah. Or an ikesh, someone who is a crooked person, okay, and someone that deceives you, doesn't give you the right time of day, he has a very sharp tongue, he knows how to talk himself out of this agreement and that agreement and this commitment and that commitment. God, how do you act with him? Titapal. What is titapal?
So ikesh means stubborn?
Ikesh, but I think it means someone, if I'm not mistaken, does he use the word arum here? I'll tell you. Cunning, yes. 1 second, let me see what the yeah, I think it's someone who's cunning, someone who's tricky. So titapal to these type of people would mean that you would act in a cunning way, in a tricky way to this type of person. So here we see the great attributes of Hashem, that Hashem often, in the eyes of David, acts midah keneged midah.
So ikesh means stubborn.
Cunning.
And what is titapal?
Confused. According to the Targum of Yonatan ben Uziel, With those people that are crooked and cunning and not giving you the right time of day, confuse them. Confuse them. Let them not have the clarity of thought regarding their way in their life. They think they have clarity of thought, and they can and fool people. You confuse them. Bechavod. Kafchet koach. Go ahead. No.
ואת עם אני תושיע, ועיניך על רמים תשפיל.
Okay. Vetam ani.
My poor nation, the poor nation.
It could be am ani, a nation that's been afflicted by corrupt people. Vetam ani, Toshia, save them. Ve'einecha, and let your eyes al ramim tashpil, those that are haughty, lower them. Here, basically, starting from the next pasuk kaftet, we're going to see a very special relationship that David explains here between he and God. We'll stop here. We'll continue with this the next time, and now we'll go to another matter.